Welcome to the latest episode of this week's Acca, sponsored by Sky Bet Acca Freeze. I'm Tom and joined by Jake and Jimmy to deliver our selections. Even with an international break taking up most of the action in the top three divisions, we'll be looking at the remaining fixtures in the usual format as we aim to deliver an Acca around that 10-1 or above marker. As ever, let us know your thoughts in the comments or through Sporting Life Football social media channels. And as ever, remember, keep it fun. Never bet more than you could afford. This podcast is 18 plus. Please gamble responsibly. We spent forever debating so many fixtures last week, and none of them really mattered anyway. Do you want to discuss? Does any of this matter? To be fair, do you want to quickly revisit last week? And
yeah, you say that, but
chaotic.
It was like 89th minute, and the Acca was winning, and we were all getting a bit excited.
I was in Morrison's, and I noticed this. Yeah. This is how wild my Saturday was.
You must have gone crazy Saturday.
I was just like, oh right, I assumed it. You know, you check the scores and go, it's not happening now. And then suddenly it was like, right. Someone texted me and I thought, this is on here. And then ended up only two of them winning. So I'm not quite sure what happened with the late drama.
It was, Cardiff were the ones that completely killed the dream. They were 2-1 up. They conceded two very late goals back to back. I think it was like literally from kickoff almost. They lost 3-2, didn't they? Which kind of ended all hopes. And then Portsmouth conceded a late equaliser to put nail in coffin. But I was thinking about this. I was like, if Cardiff didn't concede those two goals, how devastated would we have been that Portsmouth conceded 96th-minute equaliser?
I weren't devastated. I fully expected it.
You also fully expected a Barnsley win, didn't you? At Derby, that went well.
Well, we said we spent so long debating on that Derby-Barnsley game. Johnson bragging here. Ray Stevenson on YouTube commented to say he liked Jim's argument for Barnsley, but not on an Acca. But he did like the argument. Ultimately,
Thank you, Ray.
You picked the wrong person to listen to.
To be fair, I fancy Barnsley, and it's just... I mean, does anything sum up, probably, not just the EFL, because that Cardiff and Norwich result, does anything sum up Derby County quite like 3-0, was it Barnsley?
Yeah.
Turned over by Crewe in midweek.
It's funny you should say, because I've literally got in my notes, I feel for Derby fans massively, because how can you go from one result like that to the other?
They feel a strong team in midweek as well, didn't they?
Yeah. All the big guns were playing.
In that replay.
Do you want to have a quick brag of your... was it Mickey Dimitru? It was heartbreak to heart joy. I don't know. That's not phrase there.
Not really my style, but
okay, fair
I had
enough.
a little winner. Yeah. I'm also on Crewe to win. Both teams to score.
Fair enough. Yeah. So there will be donuts.
Let's just move on.
Anyone in the Sporting Life office, there will be donuts in this afternoon to get involved with. Shit. On to this week, then. As we say there, most of the top three divisions are gone. Definitely Premier League, definitely Championship. It is an international break, of course. Much like maybe September international break, one of them, I think there's only like 2 fixtures in League One. Is that right? So there's League Two. National League, I'm more than happy to go into. I think we're at a point now, we've probably watched enough of it. We know how it's shaping up to go for that one.
What about Scotland lower leagues?
I mean, if you can convince...
I have a couple.
To be fair, we have never set the rule that we can't go anywhere in the world. But there's going to be one hell of an argument here because I do not watch Scottish lower league. I watch most football. Romanian second division on a Sunday morning on YouTube. Bogosol Spartak will win one day and I will watch it. So you're going to have to go for it. Do you want
to start there?
Open it up. I was going to say, you can open it up with this then. I want to hear this. It's probably not going to go in, but let's hear it anyway.
Okay, so I've got 2. One's from Scottish League 1, one's from Scottish League 2. Scottish League 1 is...
Cove.
Yeah, you've guessed it, Cove Rangers. So you do know about Scottish League 1.
I was looking at the odds, to be fair.
Oh, yeah, 4-5 we're getting. They're third, Cove, Stirling 7th out of 10. There's 8 points between them already, despite just, a couple of places. And Cove are on an 8-game unbeaten run. They've won all of the last 5, including the last 3 at home. And 2 of those wins have come against current top 4 teams, which is in Scottish League 1, that's the cut-off promotion playoff. So in League 1, League 2, it's winner goes up automatic, and then there's playoffs. And Stirling, they've lost all of the last 4 games, lost 5 of 7 away. They've scored just 2 goals in 7 away games.
2? Is that it?
In 7.
That's rubbish.
Which is horrendous. And the top 2 currently in the league are Falkirk and Hamilton, and they beat Stirling 7-1 on aggregate in their winless run. And Cove are very much in that kind of calibre. I think Falkirk are running away with it a little bit, but Cove are in that sort of second tier, battling out for that playoff spot. And yes, Stirling are just bad team, especially away from home. And to have scored just twice in 7 away games that takes some doing.
Here's your other one. We'll move on.
The other one is...
we'll include it in the podcast. So I'm not going to put it in the Acca.
Okay.
I know nothing of the Scottish.
Please, Tom, please.
The other one is shorter price, Dumbarton. They're around 1-2 to beat Elgin, Scottish League 2. Elgin are 9th out of 10.
Been hanging out with Mark O'Hare here, haven't you? How low down the Scottish pyramid are we going?
Well, I just thought, there's such a limited fixture list. I thought I'd have a little look and see if there's any decent fancies. I've backed both of these myself already. Dumbarton, they're part of what looks like a bit of a breakaway top four in League Two. They've won 4 of the last 5. They won 4 of 6 home games. The only team to beat them are current leaders Peterhead. And Elgin have lost 6 of 11 this season. They're winless on the road. They've got the worst away record in the league. They've conceded 18 in 6 away games and scored just 4. Lost 5 of those 6. And the only result came away at Forfar, who are just marginally above them in the table. So I think this is a very one-sided game, as the odds would suggest.
There you go. Some Scottish knowledge there. Limited fixtures, if you wanted to include it.
Yeah, if you wanted to include
picks.
it, yeah.
Maybe one of them can go on a long list.
Yeah, probably.
And how we go.
Yeah,
okay. We'll put one of them on that long list when we go for it. Jim Rod, do you want to open up?
Serious football now.
I know. How dare you say that Scottish lower league is not?
Very dare you.
Do you want to go for any in League One to start with? Any in League Two that we can go at?
He's actually ballsy down.
Right.
He wasn't even joking.
No, I wasn't joking. I never joke.
I was hoping you were joking.
I think Barnsley was a late postponement because odds were available.
It must have been really
Odds
late.
are
I've
still
just
available.
missed that.
It's not there.
No, I ain't got any from League One, but I'll drop into League Two for my favourite one.
Go on and give us your favourite one to start with.
Probably Mansfield at 4-9 at Newport County.
Okay.
At home, right?
Yes, sir. Just really because Newport haven't been very good
Simple.
away to the big boys. Yeah, they're not very good. And Mansfield are pretty damn good. Yeah, Newport
It
conceded.
really is that simple, isn't it?
That's it. They've conceded 3 at Meadow Lane and 4 at Cresty Road. So they lost to Notts County 3-0, Crewe 4-2. Probably in a level below Mansfield, I'd say. I don't know what data says, Jake, but personally, from watching real life football, I'd say Mansfield slightly cut above Crewe and Notts County, and both of them sides battered Newport on their own turf. And that's pretty much it. Mansfield have lost 3 games in a week, and I know that will bother Clough, but because it's in the cup, it doesn't bother me as much. So I think that needs to be taken with a pinch of salt. So basically, Mansfield good, Newport bad. Mansfield bounced back with a decent win over a pretty respectable Salford side. So yeah, I think 4-9 it's short, but it just makes a lot of sense.
4 wins in the league in a row now as well, isn't it, for Mansfield? I mean, Jake, you've spoken so much about Mansfield on this podcast in the past. I mean, how can't you? They're a dominant side in League 2. They showed that very recently with that win over Notts County as well. I'd have no issue, to be honest, just as a starting point. I think this is a very Acca selection, isn't it, Mansfield? You can just kind of put them in and you're fairly confident they'll get the job done against the Newport side for all the reasons Jim Rod said there. Really bad away from home.
Yeah, the results are bad for Newport. The data is not as bad as the results suggest, which is a little bit of a concern when you're taking on a 4-9 shot. But yeah, overall, if you look at the big picture, Mansfield, the best team in the league according to the underlying data, and Newport, nowhere near that level, unfortunately. They're around even par for their expected goal difference, creating and conceding at a similar rate, and Mansfield are about +1 on their expected goal difference, which kind of shows their superiority. And you know, as you mentioned, just the issue Mansfield had at the start of the season and why they're not top of the league is because they've had so many draws. They've had a tough schedule as well, which has kind of contributed to that. But yeah, they've had a lot of draws, 8 draws out of 16. Started winning games now, 4 in a row. Yeah, I don't really have many issues with Mansfield going in there. And I think the fact they've had a free midweek for a change is definitely a positive as well, because they've had quite a lot of midweek football with the EFL, with the Carabao Cup. Obviously, the EFL Trophy was in there. They've not had a game this midweek, whereas Newport have, and they lost. So they'll be fresh. They'll be firing. I'm no problem putting them in. It might mean that we have to go to a 5-fold this week if we include
no issue with me, to be honest, with that stuff
no
there. Or there could be other ones that bump it up. Look at his little face. Look how happy
No,
he is
I'm
he's
just
gonna get
smiling
Mansfield.
because a week off for a Nigel Clough side, from my experience, is a negative. Because you know what he likes to do? He'll say, win this game, we ain't got a game midweek, quick 3 days in Benidorm or whatever, That's what he usually does.
Yeah, but it's refreshing at this point, isn't it?
No, it's
There
just
you
a
go.
piss up for 3 days.
Yeah, exactly. It's a nice bit of bonding there. I mean, to be fair, Mansfield, you touched on there, they played 9 of the other 10 in the top 10. So that schedule, of which they have drawn 4 of them.
That's
won 5, so...
That's what makes their current league position even more impressive. It makes the underlying data even more impressive, is because they have played arguably the toughest schedule in the entire division, and yet they're still topping all these metrics. So, definitely look good to me.
I have no issue. Should we take Mansfield as a short price starting point?
Sure you don't want to change your mind after that little...
Get them in there.
Fair enough then. First pick on this week's Acca then. We are taking Mansfield for a home win in Sky Bet League 2 against Newport. And I'm going to chuck in quiz question time because it is the international break, of course. We are qualifying for Euro 2024. Does anyone try and get tickets for Euro 2024? It's there. Nobody I know got tickets.
Going for like 600 quid on resale or something.
Ridiculous. So there's about 15 of us in this group. All of us applied to get tickets for it. One person said, I've got 4 for one of the games. Everyone else got rejected. Yeah. And then to make matters worse, the delayed UEFA mailing thing, the automated system, say you've been rejected, came about 24 hours after I knew it. So just a reminder there that you've not got tickets. Here's the automated email, just to say that you haven't. But it is Euro 2024 qualifying. England are already there. Simple question. And maybe you know, I don't know how hard these questions will be. Who is England's all-time leading European Championship goal scorer? We're talking tournament only.
That's
this
a doozy.
one. First clue, he scored 7 goals across 2 tournaments. That's your first clue?
Do you just,
or this one?
When you're saying about tickets,
yeah,
one of them where we all said, like, after the last Euros, like, let's go to all the pointless games, let's build up some points, and then let's make sure we're at Germany.
Yeah.
Just not done any of that.
No, well, I'm hoping that, when the groups come out, people go, no, it's, like one of the games I wanted to go to was the other game in Germany's group, so we need 2 kind of nations that, they can get into there. Anyway, that's the quiz question for this week. And back to this week's Acca. Mansfield to beat Newport is our first selection.
One thing we've all got in common is having that one leg of an Acca let us down. From spending your winnings in your head to cursing that last-minute equaliser that broke your heart. But it doesn't have to be that way. Acca Freeze from Sky Bet gives you the power to freeze a winning score early. Even if that team goes on to lose, Sky Bet will settle it as a winner. It's time to take action. It's time to Acca Freeze and end the game your way. Visit skybet.com for full terms and conditions.
Can we jump back up into Sky Bet League 1 and can we talk? Stevenage? You're going to go Blackpool. Well, I had my eye on both, but Stevenage is the one I want to bring because they're the bigger price of the 2. I'm not sure on this one. I kind of want to bring it to the table to see what you think. Immediately, it grabs my attention at 3 to 4. And I think maybe it'd be a bit shorter, but there is a bit of uncertainty with Lincoln, right, this week. We don't really know what we're going to expect at the weekend. However, uncertainty can also be a bad thing. I think it's, for the context of that, they've finally got head coach in. It was kind of a surprise appointment, really. There was no indication, as far as I was aware, that Michael Skubala was going to get the job. Very limited senior managerial experience, but comes from a very highly rated academy, things like that. But Stevenage, that's a 4-game winning run in all competitions at the moment. Their only home league defeat so far was to Oxford. They've beaten Derby, Shrewsbury, Wigan. They've drawn with Portsmouth as well at home. I don't know. I immediately like the price, and I like maybe taking a bit of the risk on Stevenage because we don't know what to expect on Lincoln, but it's not necessarily going to be a good thing. There's a reason a managerial change has happened. There's still squad availability issues there. I don't know. I like it. I like this at 3 to 4, but I wanted to bring it to the table as a bit of it to see what everyone else thought about it, mainly on that Lincoln side, because who knows? Who knows what it could be? He's only been there 3-4 days, so it's not like he's had a huge amount of time to work with it ahead of the game.
Yeah, you've said it a few times though, Tom, that uncertainty, you don't like it. And the new manager provides uncertainty.
It could be a bad thing though as well.
It could, but I will just add that the last 2 international breaks, we have backed Stevenage both times and they haven't won yet.
They're the due one then, aren't they?
I don't know if that's how it works.
Steve Evans wouldn't let us down 3 times, would he?
Don't know if that's how it works. But yeah, they've had 2 favourable home games. We backed them both times against Carlisle and Port Vale.
Hang on a minute. Don't know if that's how it works, but you just said the most random, pointless coincidence ever. We backed them twice in the international break and they've lost both times.
You're not due a win just because they've not won.
No, but you were saying the opposite. Like, they're being pretty bad for us in international breaks, weren't you?
I'm just putting doubt in the mind that the fact that we've backed them twice at similar prices and they've let us down twice.
That's true.
Who were those games against?
Carlisle and Lincoln and Port Vale. They were the same price to beat Carlisle as they are.
They say it happening. I'm happy to move on.
I just put an asterisk saying I could be convinced on both the League One home games, but there's another pointless bit of like voodoo. Like, surely it's not that simple. You can't just have 2 teams from the same league to win, and they're both just.
We did that once already.
It just makes me a little bit uneasy. The other thing I will say on this game is the uncertainty. I don't know how strong Lincoln's dressing room is. I don't know them personally. Is it full of characters? I don't know. Will they be able to just like gear themselves up on their own? I don't know. But something from this game did interest me. Best side from set pieces in the division. The joint best against the joint worst. So,
who's the best? Who's the worst?
Stevenage.
Stevenage the best.
Yeah, Lincoln.
Best. Who's in charge? Look at the gaffer.
Come on.
Organised.
So she fancied something from this game. Centre backs. I think. Carl Perigiani, I don't know if I've butchered that name. He's a goal scorer centre back if there ever was one. He's 8, but that's a bit skinny. His partner Terence Van Kooten is not a shot merchant. He hasn't even scored a domestic goal, but he's 20s. If you did want some punts on this game, I'll be doing that. You saw me do it in the office before we come down. Actually, I've done that. So
yeah, the final thing on this, Lincoln's away form is actually pretty good.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, they've lost 2 of the last 6 away, and they were at Peterborough and Portsmouth. They've been to Exeter and drawn, beaten Fleetwood, they beat Shrewsbury, and they drew at Northampton. So they're a steady away team, and I just don't know if I trust Stevenage again at that price. I'd be more inclined to take Blackpool at their price.
I'm going to floor my own argument here because I've just remembered that Michael Scubella had 3 games in charge of Leeds last season, and I think the first game with about 3 days' notice. He took Leeds to Old Trafford and drew 2-2, having gone 2-0 up. So I'm just going to completely floor my own argument about his ability to have an immediate impact. Talk to me about Blackpool.
Yeah, so they are a shorter price than Stevenage slightly. 8-13 we're getting. And yes, the form is patchy, but they've played a very tough schedule of late. The last 8 matches, they've played 5 of the current top 7. So it couldn't have got much tougher, really. They've won 5 of the 9 at home. They're 5th best on points this season in terms of record at home. The 4th best team on expected goal difference per home game in League One. 1.7 to 1 expected goals is what they're averaging. They're unbeaten at home against teams in the bottom half. 1-4, drawn 2. And Shrewsbury, they're 16th in the league, which is, is okay. It's probably better than what we expected pre-season.
Better than I thought they'd probably be floating bottom 4 at this point.
Yeah, but they've actually done most of the damage at home this season. They've won just 4 points from 8 away games, and they've scored just twice in their 8 away matches, which again is like, that's insane. To score just 2 goals in 8 away games is crazy. They've lost 6 of those 8. But even more concerning for Shrewsbury, so I'll just keep piling on Shrewsbury, I apologise. But they've only played 3 top half teams out of those 8 games this season. So they've lost all those by an aggregate of 8-0. So whenever they've played a really good team, they've been comfortably beaten away. That means that more than half of their away games have come against teams in the bottom half, and they've still got such a pathetic record.
Pathetic Shrewsbury.
Yeah, it's like for a team that's that are going to be battling relegation, we think, then they need to have a bit better record against teams around them. And yeah, the underlying data backs up that poor performance as well. 2nd worst away team on the data. So for me, you've got a really strong home team that have been a bit unfortunate with the schedule of late, that are much better than what their potential home record suggests against just a really bad away team. And there's only Cheltenham that are worse than them. So, I think 8-13 should be a little bit shorter. We know Blackpool are capable of scoring a lot of goals as well. We've seen that recently. So there's my pitch for Blackpool.
Yeah, I mean, I was so apprehensive about taking them on last week against Bolton. And they won, which I'll say, but Blackpool look good. They hit the woodwork and they could have got something out of that game. I like Critchley. I don't really think I've got tons to add, but apart from I've seen Shrewsbury live in the flesh at Oakwell, I probably mentioned it before on the podcast. My word, they offer nothing. Terrible, terrible, terrible. So really want this in the Acca as well.
Yeah, I think Shrewsbury have had issues scoring, but then equally I think they put 3 past Reading, and I'm sure they maybe is it Warsaw or someone, they put about 4 or something past in the EFL trophy, which I don't really count when it comes to Acca building. No issue for me. I'm happy to go Blackpool if you want to go Blackpool as a second one.
Get him in.
Any others that we can talk about now? Because I think we are heading towards fivefold territory here.
We are, yeah.
I'm happy to just discuss another selection now, get 3 in, see what price we're at, and then go from there if there's any kind of others that are immediately jumping out, if anyone wants to take it.
I think we've got the same, Jim. Do you want to lead?
Jim Rod?
No, you go, because I've got some question marks about him.
Okay.
Okay, so you need selling.
Yeah.
Okay. Barrow.
Yep.
At home.
Done. No questions.
Jim Rod's got questions. Yeah, they've been really good at home this season. They're unbeaten, won 3, drawn 4. But it is worth noting that they've had a tough schedule at home as well. They've played 2nd place Wrexham, 5th place Notts County, 7th place Morecambe, and 9th place Wimbledon already at home. So the fact they're unbeaten is pretty good. Their underlying process is positive. It's not overly impressive like a Mansfield or a Stockport, but given the schedule they've faced, I think to be in positive territory is impressive. Crawley away are just won one of 7. Most recently lost to second bottom Forest Green and 19th place Doncaster on the road, and they actually have the 3rd worst expected goal difference per game when travelling in the entire league. They've conceded the most expected goals against per game than any team in League 2 when travelling. Over 2 expected goals. They're the only team over 2 expected goals. And again, similar to the Shrewsbury argument, they've only played 1 top half team away from home this season. So the fact that they've got such a horrendous actual record and such terrible underlying numbers is even worse, because they've basically all come against bottom half teams. I think Barrow, who are looking like a really solid hard nut to crack, I think the fact that Crawley concede so many chances will help Barrow, who generally don't create too much, get on the score sheet maybe at least once and twice. I think the even money price looks a little bit big.
I'm all aboard on this. I want to hear Jim Rod's question marks.
What are your questions?
I just approach this with caution. Like, I'm not saying no, but I was just a bit apprehensive. On paper, it is one of the informed sides in the division against the worst side over the last 6 games, but I feel like the visitors showed resilience to fight from a goal back against Accrington in the last game. Aside, I think that you guys have been singing the praises for Accrington recently.
Was that at home though?
Yeah. It was. Danny. Oh shit! I butchered this. Daniolo Orsi. Sorry, I just glanced in. I'm trying important to keep.
I've seen it written down, so it's fine.
Yeah, you've seen it. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
It looks like he's enjoying his football at the minute. Does a little rodeo celebration. He scored back-to-back braces in his last 2 appearances, and he's got 7 in 15. And I think when you've got a front man in form, you can bloody the nose of any side. So that was part of the apprehension there. You did, didn't you? You pointed to Crawley's just poor away form, 1 win in 10. Yeah, there's the 6-0 at Swindon, the Donny, the lowest league sides, but they've drawn 3-3 to County at Stockport, when they were just beginning to gather momentum. Easy word for me to say.
Just before they took off Stockport, that weren't it? Before
I don't know. It was like, yeah, you're right, but there was
14 in a row or something.
Yeah, they'd won a couple, but I think they'd won one either side of that draw. And the draw was like the last time they dropped points before that ridiculous run. And then they've drawn at Salford, and they ran Notts County close in the cup a game. And you really wanted Notts County on side, and I was a bit apprehensive, and it was a topsy-turvy game. So
you weren't in the end, yeah.
Just with the form of the front man, Orsi, and just looking a little bit more in those away games individually, like, I'm not saying no, but I just don't think this is the surefire thing. You know
the thing is, though, Crawley, I had them to go down. I backed them to go down. I've accepted it's not going to be a winning bet now. But I know I wasn't the only person. Like, a lot of people were looking at Crawley, understandably, because of everything that's going on, that they'd be a team in the bottom 2, probably the team that finishes bottom. They had an incredible start to the season that took everyone by surprise. They're pushing on the playoffs. And now it feels like it's evened out. So I'm kind of a bit apprehensive to look at Crawley's results from earlier in the season when they were on a really good hot streak. And I'm more inclined to look at the recent form, which has been terrible, which is now a return to where we expected them to be. I think, having taken the piss out of Barrow and their TIFO effort, now I'm come crawling back to them to think that they can do it. I just thought this would be a shorter price. I think of the home games across both League 1 and League 2, this is probably a standout pick in terms of the price on offer, because again, I thought not as short as Blackpool, but Notts County 4-5 in the early kickoff against Bradford. I thought maybe we'd be pushing towards that, a bit shorter than that. So from a value perspective, I'd be all over this. You talk about celebration, see Pete Wild giving it the big one. Again, I'm only mentioning this because Dom's producing today and he did it at Bradford last week, so he'll be really angry in the gallery that we're talking about it. Barrow for me, 10-11, just a good home team, bad away team recently. I think for me it's, again, maybe there is some slight bias against Crawley for obviously from earlier in the season and stuff like that, but can acknowledge that they were a lot better. I'd be all over this at 10-11, to be honest. I think we should have it in.
And like I said, the recent away results are bad. I mean, you lost to Forest Green away. Forest Green could barely buy a win at that point.
I think their only away win was at Grimsby, who's since sacked
was that before, literally the game before they sacked him?
No, it's a few before that.
He was in that run, right?
But they effectively started the season that led to a manager being sacked, which, rightly or wrongly, it still happened.
Yeah,
I'm all on board. Jim Rod, you convinced it 10-11. It takes the treble, by the way, of Mansfield, Blackpool and Barrow up to just under 3.2 to 1, which then, we're talking about fivefold. We can put some other ones in there and you get into a good point where we're going to go above that 10-1 marker.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to have them in, and there's always that sticking point of, they're going to win, but it's still a little bit less comfortable than I'm happy with, and I think this is one of them games, but I think they're even money in some of the lesser known books, so I'm happy to get them in. Bit nervous though.
Well, it's a fivefold. There's always going to be one game I think you'll look and go, maybe. But there's obviously, if you're not sure, depending on the prices we go about, we talk about the freezing and stuff like that. I mean, if Barrow 10-11, they go 1-0 up and you don't like it, freeze that part of a fivefold, don't worry about it. It's basically a winner, isn't it?
Yeah.
There we go then. The treble so far of this week's Acca. Mansfield, I should go the other way actually. In Sky Bet League 1, we've got Blackpool to beat Shrewsbury. Down in League 2, Mansfield to beat Newport. Barrow to beat Crawley. 3 home wins there. And I draw you back to our quiz question of the episode, of which is, who is England's all-time leading European Championship goal scorer? He scored 7 goals across 2 tournaments. He earned 63 caps for England and scored 30 goals. Quite a prolific player for his country there as well. We will discuss our third selection, or fourth selection, I should say, next. We're up to Blackpool, Mansfield and Barrow then so far. Any more from League 2, or are we going to have to drop down to the National League? I want to know where we're at before we move on.
No, I ain't got any more from League 2.
No, I wanted to drop down to the National League, one of my favourite picks.
Oh, go on then. You can have this one.
It's Bromley at home to AFC Fylde. Even money. Bromley are 4th. Fylde 23rd. So if you like just raw table, that kind of tells you how it is. Fylde are winless against the current top 6. Lost 4 of those 6, including both away games. Lost 6 of 9 away in total. So they're a really poor travelling team. And Bromley, on the flip side, are fantastic at home. They've won 7 of 9 this season. They're unbeaten against teams below them in the campaign, and the only losses against the top 2 have come against Halifax away, which is Fylde. I don't know why that's in there, excuse me. I have no idea why that's snuck in there. The other point that I was going to make is something we've discussed quite a lot, and I'm going to bring it up again, is travel. It's a long old trip for Fylde, which is near Preston, to get down to South East London. It's around
Preston? I've got Blackpool, surely it's closer to.
I looked on the map and you come off at Preston and Fylde's just off the back of that.
It was associated with Blackpool more, but carry on.
They're quite close. But it's a 5-hour drive, just in general. And it's going to be longer if they take a coach. And I can't imagine that, like we were talking about with Middlesbrough flying down, I can't imagine Fylde are going to fly down to Bromley. So there's that in there as well.
Good odds that they do.
I think Bromley are they're a team to keep an eye on in that league. I think it looks as though they're going to be kind of finishing in the playoff places at the very least. And Fylde, they're going to be battling relegation. I know they've had a couple of scalps, but consistently they've been poor away from home, and I do think that this kind of long trip is far from ideal against a team that are absolutely flying at home.
Yeah, I've got this. No issue for me again. Another one that kind of I had jotted down. Mentioned it there, pretty much everything. I think when I was looking at it, Maidenhead, Oxford City, 2+ goal margins in home wins. They also beat Oldham 3-0 when they were in a bad position as well. Teams at the bottom, they've dispatched with relative comfort. I was, again, another one I was quite surprised by. I thought they'd be a bit shorter just on the pure. I was trying to look into it, the reasons why. Maybe someone could correct. I just can't see anything here that has changed since recent weeks in terms of players not being available or what. The big thing was Bromley, given a job based on Football Manager. Do you see this? That they are
Yeah. I saw that.
Scouting for what was the job title again? Some tactical support performance tactician. And you can apply for it, and you have to play Football Manager 24 to get the job, which I quite like. That's the only bit of information that's come out of Bromley, and that's nothing to do with this game. So, yeah, I'm surprised by this one.
I figured out what that stat was that I was reading out. So Bromley, they've only lost once out of all their matches this season against teams below them, which was at Halifax, and that's generally a tough place to go anyway. They're unbeaten across every other game apart from that. Teams below them. The only other teams to beat them are Barnet, who are second, and Chesterfield, who are the runaway leaders. So it kind of shows their level of consistency.
Any thoughts?
Andy Woodman's their manager. Close personal friend of Gareth Southgate.
Interesting.
Wonder which Gareth he was going for then.
Hang on, was someone told me this fact the other day, and it wasn't you, so I don't know what. Maybe was Bromley on TV? They were on TV against Blackpool, weren't they?
Could well have been.
And I think this is why that came up.
You know, he used to be in Alan Pardew's coaching staff as well. Do you know who got the infamous 7 or 8 or 10-year contract?
Really?
Remember?
Yeah, I remember that. I didn't know that, though.
Yeah, he's done a super podcast, this manager, but I haven't...
If that's your only input on this game, I'm happy. To be honest, I don't really need anything else if that's your contribution to it. Yeah, leave it there.
Yeah.
Bromley, for me, I'm happy to include at 10 to 11. We are only at just shy of 7 to 1, though. So I need one more pick. You mentioned them there. I'm going to bring Halifax to the table to beat Wealdstone, famous for the Raider.
Sorry, I'm not familiar.
What
does he say?
It says it exactly on the tin. Large based on their awful away form. I can't believe how bad this team are away from home. Lost 7 of 9 on the road. They are yet to win. Halifax beaten just 2 of 9 at home. But then I looked into it, and this is something that Jim Rod said on a podcast a few weeks back about the travel in the National League North, South and stuff like that. And I was thinking, why are they so bad? And then you look into the results that they've had. They're really good at home, to be fair to them. Away from home, they're not. Those 2 draws came against Bromley and Eastleigh.
Quite close, right?
About an hour.
You went back for Southern. About an hour.
About an hour. About an hour away from them, really, with London traffic and the such like that. So kind of in that close vicinity, they've been picking up points. They've gone to Gateshead, Hartlepool, Chesterfield, okay, which is a bit closer. They've lost those, and it's a 4-hour journey to Halifax. Again, it's a very simplistic way of doing things, but maybe it is that reason as to why they just don't travel very well. But it's effectively a team who haven't lost too much at home this season against one that I'm just basing on the away form. You get 21-20 on the team that they're travelling to. They have been diabolical on the road so far this season, and for me, it's a good value booster of those home teams.
What price
in the National League? 21-20. I should have said that. So you get odds against price on that.
I like the argument, and I generally think Halifax are a tough team to beat at the Shea. But do you know who's beating them this season at the Shea? Eastleigh, the team from near Wealdstone, and Dorking, who are in Surrey. So 2 southern teams have come up and beaten them so far.
That's fine. They're not Wealdstone. Wealdstone hate them. They might have a terrible bus. It's not comfortable. And it's just explaining as to why that they can't travel very well. But
I actually know why they travel terribly. Wealdstone Raider drives the bus. Scrapping everyone on motorway.
I thought you were going to make out he's some terrible driver or something like that. But it's basically their position in the table is based entirely on their home form. 23 points, 21 of them have come at home.
I found why.
Go on.
I found why they're really crap. They're not very good away from home. Part-time. They're part-time. The players are part-time.
I've hit the
They've all
mic
got
there.
jobs.
Anger.
That's it.
So they're all knackered after a long week's work.
Yeah, so they're
and have to
working, and
travel
then
up
you've
to Halifax.
got like 5, 6, 7 hours travelling on top of that, on top of jobs. That's why they're not doing well. Part-time, there's 2 part-time clubs. I knew there were 2 part-time clubs in the National League, and it makes such a huge difference with the travelling and players who are working, because they can literally play anywhere out the country out. This is a gem of a pick. Get it in, please. Yeah, part-time.
He's sold. I'm coming round to it as well, and Halifax won the last 2 at home as well. picking up a bit of form. The other two I'm just going to mention because I think it's worth a talking point.
I'll say now, if we included Halifax, we're just shy of 15-1 pre-boost on the Acca,
Yeah, that's
which I
nice.
think works, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The other one, which I think is really interesting to talk about, is Chesterfield at Southend.
I was looking at this game, and I was hoping we were going to discuss this because it is a televised game as
It is
well. So
televised,
obviously
yeah.
at 3:00, if you're doing nothing,
Yeah.
it's on TNT.
Yeah.
Usually you get the 5:30 games, so you got
Brilliant,
this
games.
weekend you got the nice bonus of 3:00. I did want to discuss this game actually.
Yeah. Because Chesterfield...
No, like, is it good? Like, they're clearly better than everyone else, aren't
Yeah, they're 4-5. They've won 9 of the last 10. They're threatening to run away with the league title, similar to what Wrexham and Notts County did. Obviously, they don't have, it's not a double-pronged approach like last season. Barnet are kind of keeping pace. They scored 47 goals in 18 games. They're averaging nearly 2.6 goals per game, won 7 of 9 away. So they're shit out away from home, just shit out in general. And Southend, the interesting thing is, you look at their home record, been really good at home. They've won 7 and lost 2. Like, they've beaten Solihull Moors, who were third place, beat them 5-0. So you think, right, okay, this is a solid home team. They've actually got 3 players on international duty. And now in the EFL, the rules are, if you have 3 players on international duty, the game gets postponed. That's not the same for National League. So they've got players who...
Barnsley v Carlisle.
Yes, exactly. You'll like this.
Still
So
on, innit?
they've got Daniel Canoe, Noor Hussin and Mauro Vilhetti, I think is his name. Striker Canoe, he's on loan from Charlton, scored 4 goals in that 5-0 win against Solihull. He's been called up for the first time by Sierra Leone. Midfielder Mauro Vilhetti, who's 30, has been called up by Sao Tome and Principes, I think is the international team, for the first time. And fellow midfielder Noor Hussin, who's 26, has been selected by Afghanistan.
You could have just said 3 players have been called up. They're
Yes,
pretty
but-
good. Why have you just butchered?
Down
You've offended
I
the
need
players, the families, the nations.
I apologise, but
watch these nations.
I just, the obviously to get any National League clubs to get teams called up by any national team is, it's pretty impressive and it shows that they are pretty good levels. But they're 3 key players that could be missing, and ultimately they've already got a threadbare squad because of the EFL off-field problem, their off-field problems. If anyone doesn't know, they've had some real issues in terms of finances. They've not been able to pick any teams. They've only going to have 13 first teamers fit for this weekend. So they're going to be, I think if we went down Southend, we might be able to sit on the bench.
It's incredible they're doing as well as they are.
It is,
Southend.
and they've had a bit of points.
Without that
deduction
points
from the
deduction,
table,
they're 7th,
Yeah.
6th, 7th maybe, which is just remarkable.
which is all based around that home form. So yeah, it just depends which way you want to look at it. If you want to look at it as the fact that Southend have a very strong home record and they're going to continue that even without these key players, then obviously you wouldn't go near Chesterfield at that price. But if you look at it as the fact that they're missing key players, they've got a limited squad for the weekend, and Chesterfield are just looking like rampant, then that price would look potential value on Chesterfield. But yeah, I think we're happy with the 5-folds. I'm not saying we're going to put them in. It's just an interesting talking point because it's a telly game, and yeah,
Could we put them in?
Jezzy.
You can do what you want, mate.
Could we? Is there anyone that you'd maybe drop out?
I don't know. The only thing is I just like the 5 teams we've got now, 5 good home teams. I think.
So all that were pointless.
Well,
No, it's nice
go
to
on the long
include.
list.
It's telly game, isn't it? We'll all be watching it.
Go on the long list if people want to back the 6-fold or 7-fold or however many.
Around to Chesterfield. Do you know what I think is? I previewed the game they beat Portsmouth in the FA Cup first round, and Portsmouth were literally the highest ranked team left in the competition. But you look at it, and Chesterfield are top of the National League. Like you said, they run away, and we've seen from the markets anti-post this season, 2 of the 3 favourites were the 2 new boys that came up, Notts County and Wrexham. So how big is the gulf? You're not talking about the gulf between League 2 and the National League. You're talking about a gulf between top-end National League being close, very close to mid-table League 1 really now. So, yeah, Chesterfield at 4-5. When I glanced at the National League, it was a price that stood out for me, and great knowledge on the Southend players' international call-ups.
Do you want to try any of the nations?
Absolutely not.
Wow, just looking at Southend's Twitter, Saturday's game against Chesterfield will proceed as planned. 70 replies to this one. People aren't happy. Ridiculous decision. Blah, blah, blah. Just people saying it's a disgrace that the game's been played. So it just basically backs up what you've been saying there. The 3 international call-ups. They said that they believed it would trigger a postponement. However, earlier they were confirmed the fixture must be played on Saturday. They said they respect the decision. They'll look forward to playing it and stuff like that.
Yeah. It could be a good opportunity. Obviously, that looks like a tough place to go, and it could be a good opportunity for Chesterfield.
The counterpoint to that was, and then we'll wrap up very shortly, that is it again just another us against the world type thing that we've clearly thrived upon all season, and it's again it's such a just what feels like a weird thing to say, but when you're a team that Southend they have no right being where they are on the table, playing as like a playoff team basically without that points deduction, and then you get another thing thrown at you. Is it just more fuel to this? No, we can do this. Like, yeah, we'll turn the best team in the league by far. We've been forced to play this game. You end up just getting something out of it because that's just how football works. Equally, they could lose 4-0 and we wouldn't be surprised. But that would be my only thing on this one. Any others we want to mention before we wrap up and get out of here? Because I think we're set on the 5 that we've got already.
I have one more from the National League. It's another home team. It's one of the 2 runaway leaders, Barnet. They're at home to Gateshead. They're 13-10, which I thought was a big price. They got beat by Chesterfield last week, did Barnet. But Gateshead, they obviously lost their manager, Mike Williamson, to MK Dons. Since losing him, they've won 1, drawn 1, lost 2. They drew with 9th place Rochdale. They got slapped by 23rd place Fylde, 4-0. They got beaten in the FA Cup by lower league Yeovil, 3-2, which I think you put up on the podcast. And then they beat Dorking, your 18th, 6-0. This is the first big test, and they've not beaten anybody inside the top 10 this season. Obviously, Barnet's second. Barnet won 7, drawn 2 at home. They really need to just consistently keep grinding off wins if they to challenge Chesterfield, stay up with them. And they've already won 2 of their 3 home games against the current top 7. Gateshead just about sit inside that. So I was really surprised to see the price so big for Barnet. But again, I think we're happy with the 5-fold. So
yeah, I just got put up by. I thought Gateshead again, and then they turned around and smacked someone 6-0. I thought, for God's sake, that's the one thing I don't need in my mind, that more doubt. I thought, Dagenham 15-8 was the only other one. I thought they were okay. I thought they played pretty well against Solihull last week. They were the late game last week. And then I thought, kind of looked at Twitter, and again, it was a lot of people going, oh, same old, same. And you're like, I don't know if I want to get on board with a team like that, but purely footballing wise, 15-8 away would be the only one there. But we seem quite set in our 5. Are we all happy with the following: Mansfield, Blackpool, Barrow, Bromley and Halifax? Are they the 5 we're settling on at just shy of 15-1? 5 home teams. Not rare, but another 5-fold, which I quite like. I quite like the look of all of them.
The last 5-fold win.
Yeah.
The last and only 5-fold win. So we're 1 for 1, 100% record.
There we go.
Not promising anything this week, but I like the look of it, I've got to say.
It's a good omen.
Yeah.
We'll recap the Acca shortly, but before we do, I want my quiz question answered. Before we get the hell out of here, Euro 2024 qualifying. England are in action tomorrow night, Friday, depending on when you're listening, against Malta. I just want you to tell me who's England's all-time leading European Championship goal scorer. Clue 1 was he scored 7 goals across 2 tournaments. He earned 63 caps for England, scoring 30 goals. Starting to give it away a bit now. He was a star for England at Euro 96, tournament everyone's got lovely nostalgia about. I don't, I was too young.
I wasn't even a twinkle in my daddy's eye at that point.
And if you haven't got it yet...
Oh, is it? No, it won't be, no.
Do you want to have a guess?
You were going to guess Ted Rod, weren't you?
No, I was... Ted Rod.
Ted Rod. I have one guess.
One of the... Shearer?
What was your guess?
I don't have it. I told you I wasn't even a twinkle in my daddy's
I
eye.
might have had a guess. Well, you mentioned Rooney when we were out the thing before.
Yeah.
I could tell you Rooney is second, and I thought this would give it away. He is the Premier League's all-time top scorer.
Shearer.
260, I should say. Alan Shearer, Euro 96 top goal scorer, takes the accolade of England's all-time leading European Championship. Naturally, the only one who's probably going to catch him is Harry Kane. At the moment, Shearer's got 7, Rooney's got 6, Kane's got 4, then you got Lampard, Sterling on 3.
Very good.
Got a quick game of higher or lower before we go.
Okay, fine. Do you want to chuck in a random quiz one?
Yeah,
Go.
the line's at 18. I zoned out for some areas of the podcast, but how many times do you think Oscar mentioned anything to do with data, XG?
Lower this week.
The line's at 18.
Mentions, just in general. Any mention of anything data-led. Are you counting a table as data?
He's tallied every single time I've mentioned.
Really?
I zoned out after we picked the 5 when you're talking about Chesney.
There's no data around the National League though, so.
Yeah, so the line's at 18. Higher or lower, what do you reckon?
Each instance. So
Yeah,
you're saying XG for and a team's XG against, that's 2.
When I was concentrating, that's what I was going for.
You do know that he's headed.
I'm going to say over here because
Over
you
18.
keep saying when I was concentrating, which makes us. You want us to lull us into unders. I'm taking overs.
I'm not playing
over
this
17
game.
and a half, please, Jim
I'm
Rod.
not playing it.
I'll take under. I reckon 16.
You've done it again. It was 13 I counted.
Oh, well done.
That's actually quite low.
It's a
for
healing.
podcast.
It's a healing process, isn't it? To
Yeah.
get away from it all. Well done. Back to the most important thing. This week's Acca, then. We are taking a fivefold. We have 5 home teams to go at. We have Blackpool to beat Shrewsbury, Mansfield to beat Newport, and Barrow to beat Crawley. And then dropping down into the National League, we've got Bromley to beat Fylde. We've got Halifax to beat Wilson. And as ever, remember to keep it fun, never bet more than you can afford, and please gamble responsibly. Make sure you get in touch with us on social media. Search Sporting Life Football. You'll be able to find us that way. And head over to sportinglife.com/football to find that fivefold to back at an enhanced price. We'll have the link there to put all of our selections on there as well. The long list, if you fancy, like Jim Rod, you're not sure on one of them, you just want to freeze it, don't want to worry about it in case they go 1-0 up, you can do that as well. And if you haven't already, please follow, rate us on iTunes, Spotify, cliched chosen podcast provider. We'll be back next week.